G'day, my Groveling Ghouls. Today I'm coming back at you with a brand new video about how to take the Levia deck that I've shown off here and tone it down with some more budget options. Because as much as I'd like to believe that we all have access to, our cold foil Levias, our rainbow foil Blasphemfets, I know most of us are looking more like this. But nothing wrong with that. So I do want to go ahead and make this video showing off all the Majestics and Legendaries that this deck uses, and some good replacements and kind of the purchase order of what you really need to make this deck work versus what you can get away without and still have a very fun, large number hitting Levia deck. So with that, let's get into it. Alright, so what I've got for you here is kind of the layout of the must-haves, the you probably really want thems, and the you can definitely get away withouts. For all of the super rares, Majestics, and Legendaries, and actually the Fabled as well that I run in my Levia deck. So at this bottom tier, these are the cards you really don't need to get to do well with Levia. And funny enough, one of them is Command and Conquer. Command and Conquer just has innate synergy with Brutes because it is a 6-power attack and does block 3 and provides a good hit effect. So it is an all-around good card, but you can get by without using Command and Conquer for kind of a whole slew of other 6s that just take the slot pretty well. One of the best suggestions I've got would actually be Cadaverous Contraband. While this is not a block 3, it still fits everything else Command and Conquer does, with it being a 6-power attack that has a threatening hit effect. And if you've never seen this card, basically it says if it hits, you can put a non-attack action card from your graveyard on top of your deck. And what that does for a deck like Levia is threaten your ability to recycle cards like Bloodrush Bellows, or maybe even a Shadow Puppetry, and that can be pretty scary. In fact, a cool combo that comes up if you run Cadaverous Contraband is the ability to actually just play a Shadow Puppetry first. This will then go to grave. Then you play Cadaverous Contraband coming in for 7, and threatening that if it hits, put a non-attack back on top of your deck. You could threaten putting that Shadow Puppetry right back on top. So that's a fun little combo you can do if you decide to run the Cadaverous Contraband over Command and Conquer. And honestly, it's a pretty good sub out, to the point where I'm even considering running this in the deck alongside Command and Conquer just to have more threatening hit effects. So that's a really good sub there. So the Ivophidia that I run is purely because I really put value into the Opt effect, but you really just want another blue in this slot. It can be anything. One of the easiest suggestions to make is to just throw in a Reckless Swing, the 3rd copy, for that Ivophidia slot. But really, this can be any blue that you really like to play. If you really just want to up consistency as well over having good pitch count, then if you own a Gorganian Tome, you could actually run that in that slot as well, just to have that extra consistency, trim your deck, and find the good cards. And Gorganian Tome's a pretty fun card in Levia as well. It has its own combos, where once you play this and it's in graveyard, you've now filled up graveyard a bit, drawn into a playable card, and then when you banish Gorganian Tome from graveyard, your opponent is never going to get the extra draw. So Gorganian Tome kind of has its synergy in Levias. It is just a filler card, though. I wouldn't prioritize cutting something for this. But yeah, it's pretty good. So that's a good sub there. So as far as this middle section goes, get these out of the way. As far as this middle section goes, these are the, you want these, but you don't have to prioritize them because they're not doing something that you can, they're not doing something that other cards really can do in their place, or can't do in their place, rather. So in this lineup, we've got cards like Shadow Puppetry. So Shadow Puppetry is honestly not that pricey of a Majestic, especially since it went down in price a bit with Chain being less popular. But it can still get up there, especially buying your playsets of these cards. But really why you're running Shadow Puppetry is because it's a way to get Go Again off of a card, and does have a little bit of synergy with the Banish effect. Now there isn't a direct card that can replace that, but what you can do is run Lead the Charge instead. It also is a blue over a red, so if you're finding that the pitch feels a bit off to you, you can just 100% slot this in over it. So Lead the Charge is going to give you an action point when you play a card with cost 2 or greater, which is most of your deck. This is actually kind of better than Shadow Puppetry versus Prism as well, because an action point means after you've swung into Arclight Sentinel, you will still be able to use your Go Again, because it's an action point, not technically Go Again. So that's an easy sub there. Then we've got the equipment, Scabskin Leathers and Gambler's Gloves. And while these are an amazing combo, and I would definitely recommend getting them at some point, especially since they're also good in KO, in Rhinar, you don't need them because, funny enough, Levia has access to a really, really strong suite of replacement cards here. That would be Hooves of the Shadow Beast as a Shadow Brute equipment here. This is a one-time use gain an action point that still blocks for 1. So it's not as good as Scabskins, but for a budget option, the fact that, this is relatively free versus dropping, $50 on Scabskins or whatever, it's pretty amazing that she has access to this card because it can save a lot of money. And then, of course, over Gambler's Gloves, you're only going to run this if you run it with Scabskins. So if you're doing Hooves, I would take the Goliath Gauntlet. And this is strong in its own right, giving +2 to your Cadaverous Contraband, or if you have the CNCs, or just to try to push lethal on something. Goliath Gauntlet is just a very good card, and of course you crack it, goes to grave, so it can kind of help in that sense as well. Then for the last card here, Art of Wars, you don't actually need them. They are great in Levia because they synergize with your ability to turn off Blood Debt and play Groveling Ghouls, as I learned they're called. Really, this card is just a go again enabler, and you can sub it out for pretty much a Yellow Dread Screamer. It's not going to be the best replacement, but it's pretty close in that this is just another playable that has go again. Yes, it's not a 6, but neither is Art of War. So if you're just looking for that go again enabler that lets you play Groveling Ghouls, this does the same thing and saves you quite a bit of money. So that's it for that middle tier. Now, I really would push y'all to pick up this top row of cards. These are the cards that make Levia so good, and playing without them, I would honestly kind of lean towards playing a different hero if you didn't have these cards. So first here is Reckless Swing, and this is a really easy one to pick up. I think they're down to about $1 right now or less. Reckless Swing is just one of my favorite cards, and the reason I like Brute so much is that it lets you win games an extra half-turn cycle early. In Levia, it also has the synergy of filling up your graveyard as well early game before you've committed to turning off Blood Debt. So this is just one of those cards that, yes, it's a higher rarity, but you really should just get it immediately, and it is cheap enough that I think most of y'all can swing it. But then we've got Carrion Husk. And Carrion Husk, boy oh boy, this card is really good. It feels so oppressive to play against this card, especially when Chain was using it, but I promise you Levia makes it feel just as oppressive, and it has its own synergies of getting to graveyard and letting you play Doomsday, which I'll get to in a second. I would really prioritize picking up Carrion Husk. I know it's a lot to ask. This card's going for like 100 plus right now, but it is one of the reasons she's so good, so tanky, and so threatening, because she gets to block 6 and keep a big hand. Now, if you don't have it yet, that is okay. There is Barkbone Strapping, which you can use. It's another Brute equipment piece here. It is only going to block 1, but it does have that upside of being able to give you extra resources. So while it's not nearly as good as Carrion Husk, for the time being, it's definitely a decent replacement. And of course, if you don't have Tunic, then this can just go there as well. Then we've got Beast Within. So Beast Within is really good alongside Bloodrush Bellows. Apart from that, it's not amazing. It's just a card you can play early game to just start filling graveyard with 6s or just block 3. It is insane with Bloodrush Bellows, but if you don't have your copies of it, then this is an easy card to just swap out with pretty much anything else. You can swap it out for a whole suite of things, like either more aggressive cards like Writhing Beast Hulk. I would take the red over yellow though, if you just want more ways to turn off Blood Debt, more attacks that are lethal in the endgame. But my top suggestion for replacing this card would be the Barraging Bighorn, because it's another yellow, and it is a card that can fill up graveyard early, which is something Beast Within can do. And it actually does that twofold, because you will discard a card to play this, and it has the chance to enable Go Again. So it's not terrible, because in theory, you could play this off a blue, discard a card, and then if they don't block it with at least 2 equipment cards, you could swing in with a Ghostly Visit as well, presenting 10 damage off a 2-card hand, well, off a 3-card hand. So it's not amazing, but it is the option over Beast Within. Then we've got Bloodrush Bellow. This card you need to pick up. There is no direct replacement for this. In fact, I just straight up wouldn't run Levia if you don't have access to the Blood Rushes. This card just is why the deck is so powerful when built around Claws and Bloodrush. It enables all the big power turns that make your deck scary. Otherwise, you do have a hard time breaking the math of dealing about 12 a turn. So absolutely, you need to pick up this card. There is no replacement for it. And then the last one here, and one of my top choices, because this is the card that got me into Levia. I did open a Doomsday in my first box of Flesh and Blood ever, so I am quite partial to this card, and I do think you do need it, because Blasmafet is another very unique aspect of playing Levia, and another reason she's so good. But Doomsday, there is no direct replacement for her. I mean, you can put any other blue here. You could put that Gorganian tome back in if you're just missing the Doomsday for the time being. But Doomsday really is so good for the deck. It is just a one-of, so you're not going to find it all the time. But when you do, your ability to pull in your boy Blasmafet and start threatening 6 damage for no resources every turn, and then buying yourself an extra 6 health, boy, that is powerful. So I do think this is a must-have for Levia. So to really sum it up, the cards that don't have any replacements are not... Yeah, actually there's not many that can't be just strictly replaced. It's really these 3 that don't have a direct replacement. So, you know, as far as making this a budget build, hopefully this can help you a bit, because I would love to see more Levia players. And once you try her even at this kind of powered down, more budget version, you will fall in love with the deck, fall in love with our poor old Levia. And, you know, I only say poor old because if you haven't read her lore, it's quite the read, and it'll make you sympathize with her and love her even more. So with that, guys, just a quick video here. I've had a lot of requests about how to make this deck more budget friendly, so hopefully this was a worthwhile watch for y'all. Anyway, with that, I actually will be in Dallas this weekend, so if any of y'all will be there, love to see ya, say hello, and yeah, hopefully we all do well. And with that, have a good one.